Hello, everybody. My name's Andrew Krause, and I'm here again for Music Theory Logic. Today is going to be another music theory breakdown. Today's song was first shown to me by a student of mine. Shout out to Maddox. This song is called City of Angels. It's been flying up the charts by 24kGoldn. All right, let's go ahead and look at my recreation. If you're new to these music theory breakdowns, basically what I do is I recreate the instrumentals as closely as I can so that I can then show you where the notes come from and we can talk about these songs from more of a music theory standpoint. So without further ado, I'm going to play my instrumental. Now you're going to hear some live guitar, which I recorded myself playing. And you will also hear some of these logic-controlled drum sounds. And I'll probably bring in the vocal just for a little bit from the original track, which I am EQing out all the low end and some of the higher harmonics, just so that we could hear it with the vocals. But I don't really usually play all the vocals in these videos just for copyright reasons. So I always encourage everybody that watches a music theory breakdown to go and listen to the original track, because that is ultimately the exact song that I'm talking about, so that makes sense to go and listen to it if you want to see the music theory breakdown. So here we go. Here is my rendition of City of Angels by 24kGoldn. I'll bring in the vocal here so we can hear it with the drums. Nice. So I'm going to stop it there. Again, I encourage you to go listen to the whole instrumental. It's basically those sections that you just heard repeating. So I'm not going to play the entire thing since some of you will get bored with it repeating. So let's just get after it. So the chord progression is basically going B flat major, A flat major, G major. Now this is a really interesting one to talk about music theory wise, because first of all, it's repetitive, so it's somewhat simple, but it's also somewhat like atypical or uncommon with where these notes come from. Cool. So essentially, this song is what we would call in G dominant Phrygian, which is a really fancy scale. So just to remind you of what Phrygian is one of the 7 musical modes. A mode you could think of as our main major scale, starting from a different tone. So we know our minor scale is starting from the 6th tone in major, going to that same octave with the same notes from the major. And that's so important. Not only is that called Aeolian mode, but we call that minor. And so today we're talking about Phrygian mode. So we are in G Phrygian. Now, Phrygian is always the 3rd note of a major key to figure out where the other notes come from. Our reference key is E flat major. So E flat major, let's listen to that. We have E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, and E flat. Nice. Some of you might find those notes familiar. In my last video, Revolution by Diplo, we talked about C minor, which is the relative minor. Again, that 6th note from this major key. Cool. So this song actually has the same notes, with the exception of 1 for a chord. We basically have this E flat major scale starting from the note G. So G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G. There's no different notes here. Then we're over here on the left. Cool. Let me get rid of that. Just make it a little bit easier to see. Cool. So again, E flat major, or G Phrygian. Nice. Now here's the chord progression. We basically have B flat major, that would be a 3 in the key of G Phrygian. We've got A flat major, that would be a 2 in the key of G Phrygian. Then we have a G major chord. Now this is a really interesting one because technically we want that B flat note in the key of G Phrygian. That's where that word in the beginning I said dominant comes from. So this is a really sort of specific scale. We don't even necessarily need to think of this as G dominant Phrygian, but basically our one chord, this G, is a G major chord. Now, there's not a lot of musical stuff going on in the song, in the instrumental, besides the guitar and the bass line. Besides that, we get the vocal, which is super cool. I like it a lot. I love this style of like alternative meets hip hop stuff. Sounds like a band could be playing it, but coming from a rapper like 24kGoldn. Super cool stuff. So yeah, these are the 4 chords that repeat. So on guitar, that's what you're hearing. I charted this in MIDI so that we could look at it. This is our E flat major, F flat major, G major, and back to A flat major, and that repeats the entire time. Now, rhythmically, this song gives us something kind of cool to talk about, and that is swung eighth notes. So what swung eighth notes mean is that typically we know that every 2 boxes, since I'm in a 16th note grid, those would be eighth notes. But swung rhythms, what that means is every other rhythm we're swinging, so again, eighth notes, is going to be slightly behind time. What that does is instead of it making it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we get the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's where those chords fall in. So this is that strum. So basically 2 eighth notes on that swung second eighth note. Then we skip the 3rd eighth note, and we have on essentially the 4th eighth note, or the second swung one. Most swing rhythms, they're reminiscent of human beings playing together. So they're not going to be totally perfect each time, or at least I don't like them to. So you'll notice this is like a little bit further or closer to the beginning than halfway, and this is more like halfway through the 8th note. And again, I really matched that to the guitar in the actual recording of City of Angels, and when I played it, I did the same thing. So I'm basically playing on these swung 8th notes. Cool. So this section for guitar repeats pretty much the whole time. Let's talk really quickly on that guitar note. I just wanted to talk about the tone because it's kind of cool. When we hear it in the beginning, there's a lot of like really typical effects going on, like compression. I have it going through, I recorded this direct in the computer, so it's going through one of the Logic guitar amps. I'm EQing out some of the noisy mids. I'm compressing it. I'm using CLA guitars just as a final sort of plug-in to make the track stereo, / I really like the stereo width sound of the CLA stuff. The one thing that's really unique here or special is this chorus effect. So I'm just using the Logic chorus. Got an intensity of 37%, mix 25%. That fit to my ear. But it's not totally perfect, but there's definitely a chorus on the guitar in this. So choruses are really cool. They're sort of like dimension expanders, only we get the original fundamental. I'm not as much of an engineering expert on how chorus effect is working, but I am a guitar player and have been for many years, and chorus is one of many guitar effects that are super common, and chorus effects became really common in the 80s. Whenever I think of chorus effect, I always think of like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, Whitesnake, for whatever reason. Perhaps that'll help you. So tone-wise, that helps us. Then let's talk more about that swing. So the cool thing about swing is, or one thing we'll notice about swing when we have a band playing, is every musician is going to be accenting or playing those swung rhythms. So we would never have a drummer playing on the the straight eighth note because the song is swung. So this is what it looks like when a drummer or someone clapping along is playing along. So these claps line up exactly with the guitar hits that we have. Clap, 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 clap. So the syncopated rhythm or the swung rhythm is exactly the same. So we get the two claps. That's sort of like bringing in our drum kit in the beginning. Then the measure before everything comes in, we get 3 quarter note hi-hats. So just exactly on the line. Again, when we're talking about swing, we're talking about the rhythms in between these. So even though the song is swung, when we have just the quarter notes, we don't notice that. Then finally, we have a pitch bend bass starting on the note D and sort of sliding down. You could do that by playing bass and holding the note D and sliding your hand down, or inside Logic, if you use the subby bass, that preset, it's and you hold out the notes for full quarter notes, it has that dive bomb or that slide down in there. What you could also do if you don't have that instrument is you could go into your MIDI automation. If you're in Logic, you have this instrument, so it won't look the same. But you're going to want to find, in whatever DAW you're in, pitch bend parameter. And then you're going to want to draw in the pitch bend. And then within the actual instrument you're talking about, or you're using, you're going to want to define its pitch bend parameters. In other words, how far that bends. I talked about that in the last music theory breakdown for that electronic fat sub from Revolution by Diplo. So if you're curious about that pitch bend automation, I suggest checking that video out. Cool, let's talk about this main drum section. Cool. So the bass line is literally just following the guitar, only on basically half notes or where it changes on the downbeats. Again, these rhythms you see aren't the ones that are swung, so those are right on the line. We're going to see the swing in this drum pattern if we go in here. This top line is just our hi-hat, closed hi-hat. That is hitting on a 4/4 every perfect downbeat. So right on 1, 2, 3, and 4. The snare pattern is a standard snare backbeat. So we get the snare on 2 and 4, 2 and 4. And every other measure, we don't get the second snare. That gives it some more breathing room. But that's fundamentally what the snare or the snare is doing. The clap pattern continues in this section, and it's still doing that eighth and swung eighth pattern that it was in the intro. Cool. The kick drum is the only other section where we're going to find the swing. We basically have the kick drum on 1, beat 3, and then beat 1 of the next measure, and beat 4. But then we're adding in this extra kick sound. So we get basically like a dotted quarter note into the swung eighth note in the kick drum. Then we get another kick on beat 3, our third quarter note. Get beat on the next measure, the 1, and then the swung eighth note right before the fourth quarter note, we get a kick. And then finally, we get a kick on beat 4, and then the swung eighth note following that. And that is basically everything that's happening here. Just to wrap it up, in case some of you are still wondering about the Phrygian thing, it doesn't really matter for theory for us to fully define that because, if we were trying to do a remix to this, perhaps we'd want to identify the scale in case like we wanted to write some sort of solo instrumental. So that's really important. But for this, it's really just these 4 chords. They're all major chords, which is really strange for a lot of music. That's why it sounds modal. And for those of you that still can't understand what modal or don't understand what modal is, it sounds strange. When you listen to this guitar, something sounds a little quirky or a little bit weird about it. And the thing that makes it weird, in my opinion, is that you get all major chords and they're basically just moving around. I'll wrap this up showing you guys on guitar. So I have a guitar right here, and writing something modal, if I don't push my mic over, isn't the craziest thing to do. Basically, they're taking a B flat, which is, or let me think about this. Yeah, a B flat, which is your 6th fret. Sorry, I had a brain stall, and it's basically this E major shape bar chord, followed by that A flat 4th fret, full major chord, followed by 3rd fret G, full major chord. You won't fully hear it because I'm not mic'd up, but you should hear it through the mic. It's the B flat, A flat, G flat, or G, A flat, B flat, A flat, G, A flat. And what's weird about this is that these chords aren't in a really, really typical scale together. But because they're really just the instrumental or the notes we have in the beat, and there's not a solo besides the vocal, it works. And again, it makes it somewhat unique. So hopefully this was helpful. We got to talk about G dominant Phrygian, pretty crazy. You could think of it as just as G Phrygian, where sometimes you'll have a major 1 chord. If you look that up on Wikipedia, you'll find that there's tons of different subtle variations from Phrygian or any of these scales. So pretty much anything you could think of has a name. That doesn't mean we need to know the name to write with it. Ultimately, all this stuff is to help us better understand what we could totally write on our own with just our ears. If it sounds good, music theorists have come up with ways of explaining it. I don't suggest starting writing music from that perspective, but it can really help us to better understand our own styles, to understand what we've written when we do write by ear, and how we could perhaps finish that or complement it with something that isn't coming to us by ear. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. I wish you the best of luck on your producing music journey. If you found this helpful, you'd help me out a ton by subscribing to the channel. You'll see my little head bitmoji in the corner if you'd like to do that. And other than that, I'll link to my textbook below. I'll give you my email. Should you have any questions or perhaps a suggestion about another song I should do a breakdown for, leave me a comment. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Good luck with all your musical work. Send me some tracks if you think of it. Till next time.